Grass,
Scrub!
with weeds. You could also see him.
Scrub! Come here.
But what was he? Well, according
Come on.
to the floating words in his mind that accompanied him for the last year, he was a demonic spirit sapling.
Up.
Ignoring the rude man that had interrupted his
Come on.
sleep, Ashlock summoned his status
Up,
page.
up. Come on, fat boy.
Demonic spirit sapling, age 2. Key realm, first stage. Skills, devour. Grade C. Basic spirit sight, grade F. Basic meditation, grade F. Sacrifice credits for complete system unlock, 30 of 50. Back on Earth, Ashlock had asked his friend to bury him when he died under the enormous tree in his local park. It had always given him a certain feeling when he sat on the park bench under its canopy, like a warm welcome home. Seems another season has passed, Ashlock spoke to himself, since nobody could hear him. When he first arrived in this alien world, he tried to talk to the humans who occasionally passed within his limited sight range, but they never reacted, no matter how much he yelled. The man waited patiently in front of him, but sadly, not only was Ashlock's spirit sight limited, it was also blurry. Like looking through frosted glass, he could make out the shapes and colors, but any fine details were beyond him. The fuck do you want, random guy? I have nothing to offer. I'm a tree, for God's sake. Ashlock had no idea why, but this man came by every so often with a sacrifice to offer him, as if he were some patron deity. After a minute, the man sat down cross-legged
He's a good
and left the
boy.
rabbit-looking creature he was holding on the ground. Then, as blood trickled out of the rabbit's slit neck onto the purple grass, Ashlock felt a familiar feeling. Hunger. Without thinking, he activated his Devour skill. Black vines covered in tiny thorns surged from the ground like wading vipers and wrapped around the rabbit corpse, mummifying it. The black vines pulsed with energy as the thorns bit into the rabbit's soft flesh and pumped out the blood. Before Ashlock even realized it, the vines loosened up and retreated under the ground, and he felt a rush of power. It was small, but compared to the minuscule energy he absorbed through his meditation skill from the sun, the devoured rabbit gave a week's worth of energy all at once. Ashlock resisted the urge to use Devour on the sitting man. There was no requirement that the target had to be dead. They simply had to be in range, and ideally, stationary. Ashlock knew the man would give him a lot more energy than the rabbit, perhaps enough to finally reach the second stage of the Key Realm, whatever that meant. But alas, Ashlock was no fool, and knew the man wouldn't take being devoured kindly. The man said some unintelligible words, patted his bark, and left. Ashlock checked his status, and sure enough, the number of sacrifices obtained for the system unlock had increased by 1. Sacrifice credits for complete system unlock, 31 of 50. Ashlock had no clue what complete system unlock meant. He had read many novels and played games back on Earth. Wait, maybe this was still Earth. The people who visited him were odd, and the creatures looked slightly off, but his vision was so poor it was hard to tell. I think it's safe to assume I'm in another world, though. Never heard of anyone cultivating back on Earth. And with that thought, Ashlock activated his basic meditation skill. The energy that was chaotically rampaging through his trunk began to calm. Ashlock had no clue how the skill worked, but it allowed him to somewhat control the energies within while also absorbing some ki from the sun. If only it wasn't so slow. Ashlock had been here for 2 years, and even with over 30 sacrifices and constant basic meditation, he hadn't seen much improvement. Except his trunk had grown a little taller. He was now the height of an average man. But don't trees grow naturally? Surely I'm growing a little fast, but nothing that couldn't happen on Earth. Maybe my bark has also gotten harder. Difficult to test. Ashlock tried not to think about it, but he was terrified. What if the man needed some firewood, or some otherworldly monster snuck into the area he was in? Unfortunately, apart from his devour ability, he could not fight back. Deciding such thoughts were pointless, as there was nothing he could do, Ashlock entered his state of meditation once more, and the world drifted away. 3 this time. Ashlock saw a trio enter his field of view. A small person. Ashlock was only around the man's height, so unless he had rapidly grown in stature, one of them was likely a child. Or midget. What if there are dwarves in this world? Honestly, Ashlock had zero clue about this world. Maybe one day he could learn more. I wish I could hear them speak. It would make my life so much easier. Ashlock sighed in his mind as he observed the 3 people. Wait, is that a girl? One of the 3 had long blonde hair flowing out of their black cloak like a cape. The other 2 were clearly male, and how they were a step behind the female suggested a potential subservient nature to their relationship. The girl was holding a bag tightly in her hands, which the other 2 seemed interested in. Of course, Ashlock was also interested in the contents of the bag. Although he time-skipped when he meditated so he could avoid the weeks or months of boredom, he was still starving for some entertainment. Oddly, the system seems to wake me up when someone comes within my range. Will that be an issue when my basic spirit sight upgrades and I can see further? These questions for another time, as the girl had opened the bag and brought out a decapitated head. The 2 men seemed just as surprised as Ashlock. They both took a step back and drew out some type of long weapon, likely a sword, but Ashlock's blurry vision made it hard to tell. The only reason he could tell the girl had taken a head from the bag was that he recognized it. It was the head of the man who had given him the rabbit last time. A slight tinge of disgust and regret bloomed in the back of Ashlock's mind. The man had been just a blurry figure, but he had provided him with food. Wait, am I some kind of dog that wags its tail for food? Fuck that. Ashlock dismissed the feeling and focused on the action. The girl dropped the decapitated head on the ground by Ashlock's exposed roots, and he could feel the fabric of her cloak as she backed up against his trunk. Blue energy illuminated the 2 swords, like lightsabers in Ashlock's basic spirit sight, and they swung forward. Wait! Ashlock screamed as 2 arcs of blue light surged toward him. The girl deflected the 2 incoming attacks with her palm, empowered with a purple light. She then acquired 2 daggers from God knows where and lunged at the man to the left. The man kicked back